Well, good evening and welcome to this live stream on the 24th of August 2021. Martin North here from Digital Finance Analytics. Great to have you along for the ride. I should explain that I'm wearing my coat tonight. It is so cold here in Sydney. It is really, really, really cold. So apologise for the for the black, but hopefully it's okay. And great to have you all along with us. This is a very important conversation tonight. I've been one I've been wanting to have for a few weeks, given some of the recent events, and so we're going to explore the whole question of CryptoLand, who to trust, how to trust, what does trust look like in CryptoLand as well. So, and I think one of the important questions will be talking about something called staking, and Mark actually just mentioned that now. So yeah, we'll definitely talking that. And Jeff, thanks very much for that. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting conversation. I think we're going to have a great fun. I quite like my philosophical shenanigans with Adam. Before we get him to come in, I'm just going to run my normal little warnings, which is just simply this, that this isn't financial or indeed legal advice. This is a general conversation. Do please play nice in the chat room. No racial slurs. We do moderate the stream. This is as the 24th of August 21, if you're watching in replay. And if you want to get my attention, use @Walk the World. That will make sure that I see your question. Very happy for conversations to run in the chat, but I won't necessarily engage in all of them. I've also enabled Super Chat, which means that if you want to, you can get your question top of the list, or indeed, as some have done already, make a general contribution to the running of the show, which is greatly appreciated. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring Adam Stokes in. Adam, are you there?
G'day, Martin. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great to have you on, and thank you very much for taking some time out of your Tuesday to join me. This is, I think, a really, really important conversation because there are so many questions that people have with regard to crypto, and some of the things that have happened recently with Nugget and other people and other things too. There's a lot of people have a lot of questions, so hopefully we can answer those tonight. But just before we sort of get going, why don't you just give you a little bit of an overview of yourself and your background and the crypto world that you occupy, so people can understand where you're coming from.
Sure. So my name's Adam Stokes. I host a YouTube channel called Adam Stokes where we discuss crypto and economics and finance. I'm also the author of 28 Pro Trader Tips, the Art of Trading, and very much enjoy exploring these topics with Martin.
Yeah, great. Ooh, you caught me off guard.
You wanted something longer, didn't you?
No, that's fine. I was just twiddling with your audio to make sure that you were as loud as me. So I'm just watching the scopes here as you chat, because it's interesting how sometimes people talk differently when they're on air compared with before I am. Anyway, that's good. Now, I think there's a few things I want to lay as a foundation for this conversation, right? Because I want people to understand that I'm a great supporter of the concept of the blockchain and what the blockchain can enable in terms of distributed computing and all of those things, right? So this is not necessarily a conversation about do I trust blockchains or not, right? This is about the DNA of CryptoLand that it currently exists, with more than 10,000 coins out there and rising, right? With a lot of people very active in social media and basically pushing particular coins, significant movements, market movements up and down. Bitcoin's up again now. It was down, right? So there's a bunch of interesting sort of contextual questions, right? Which is very important to understand. But what I'm interested is something which came out today, in fact, which was from the ACCC. The ACCC came out with this that said, people are losing significant money from bogus investments, and they called out specifically cryptocurrency trading scams as one of the most significant growth spurts. So clearly, Adam, there is risks in this. So how do you think about the risk reward sort of framework when you think about CryptoLand, and how do you put it into categories and buckets, and how do you make sense of it?
There's a lot to unpack, and well done on exploring this, because it's something that when I first started in the crypto space, my channel was primarily on YouTube about crypto mining. That is operating the machines in the background to power the blockchain that enable transactions to go through. back in 2017, it was much worse than what it is now. It was the wild, wild west, and in many ways it still is. And what I moved into on my channel was exposing a lot of the scams out there. But what was happening then is, in fact, the majority of my time was talking about the negativities of crypto. That is, this is a scam, that's a scam, watch out for the scam. And as a result, everyone was thinking that all of it is a scam. In my book, I speak about the speed of markets, and I've been trading for many years. And what's interesting about crypto is the speed of how everything is moving so quickly. So if you look at traditional markets that are operating 9 to 5, or even less than that, 5 days a week, 48-ish weeks a year, depending which market you're in, these markets are moving quite slow. Then we go over to the internet of money, which is crypto. It never sleeps. It's moving so fast, and it's so inclusive that there are huge opportunities for everyone to get involved. Now, that strength, of course, is the ability for everyone to be involved in these markets with little tiny buy-ins or massive buy-ins, with no need to go to, in its pure essence, a bank or a third party, as we did in the olden day markets, where there was typically a $500 minimum buy-in, a lot of paperwork to qualify to get into these markets. And of course, even then, once you were in the markets, the growth or the movement in these markets were quite slow and small. Fast forward to today, and we can see the growth and movements in these markets are fast and massive. So there is immense opportunity to make a lot of money in these markets. But the downside to that, Martin, is, of course, there is immense opportunity to be misled in these markets. And because it is so inclusive and so open and so fast, and in many ways so decentralized, it is creating a lot of gaps for bad players to come in. And what we spoke about in a video a while ago, Martin, was we spoke about in 2017, there was the big scam was ICOs, that is initial coin offerings. And the equivalent to that is an IPO, an initial public offering, as we see with shares. And what was happening in 2017 was many of these coins were coming forward and saying, we're going to be a coin for this industry, and we're going to be a coin for that industry. And so much money was pouring into these projects that would either never launch because they never intended to launch, or didn't launch because they were outsmarted by a competitor, or in fact, they never launched because when they ran the ICO, they made more money from simply gathering capital from the open market than they would actually launching the product itself. So many people were burnt in 2017. Fast forward to the next cycle, which is right now. We've got new money coming in, institutional money, which is the big money, which is why we can see much bigger market cap for the entire cryptocurrency market in as more than $2 trillion as we speak. But of course, what's also happening, as we saw in 2017, is that there's bad players coming into this space. What I'm really trying to push out, and I will actually just speak about one product I did launch, which is called the CryptoLand. And that CryptoLand is ironically a platform where I put all the products that I use in the crypto space and the only products that I trust. Now, going on to trust, I recently released a video after the whole Nuggets News saga about trust. And I encourage your viewers to watch that video about where I speak about trust in the crypto space. And one thing that I've learned in my crypto journey, and in fact, even going beyond that, even in my investment journey outside of crypto, but particularly in the crypto land, is that you should never really put more than 20% in any one platform. What happens is people hear about a good ICO, a good coin, a good investment, or so they think, and they pour all of their money into it. And the danger of that, of course, is if it all goes pear-shaped, you've lost everything. Now, on one hand, it may go pear-shaped because it was a scam. But on the other hand, it may actually go pear-shaped because it's just part of business, and businesses often collapse. Just as shares collapse, cryptocurrencies collapse or don't go very far. So what I'm really trying to articulate to the viewers, to my audience, and to yours as well, is don't think that crypto is a scam. Scammers are the scam. And as a result, we need to put tools in place that, A, allow us to filter out the scams from the good projects, but B, also calculate the risk. And I think why people are very much drawn into the crypto space is not only because of its inclusivity where everyone can get involved, but of course because of the massive returns. There are unforeseeable returns to make in the crypto space. Some of my private students have made more money in the last 6 months than they have in the last 20 years of their career. And this is very difficult to grasp as a concept. And in many ways, some people get quite upset by this in the sense that they've spent a whole lifetime building up their super fund, their property portfolio, their career, and yet they can come into the crypto space, and if they do it properly, they can make more money in 6 to 12 months than they have in an entire lifetime. But again, the downside to that is it opens up a lot of greed. And when there's a lot of greed in the markets, that's when the scammers come in and provide, unfortunately, horrible opportunities for people to get ripped off. And the other issue that we're really facing, Martin, is that during the 2017 cycle, when all the ICOs were coming out and destroying a lot of people, and not all ICOs were bad. I point out Ethereum as an example. Ethereum was an ICO, and from memory, I think Ethereum was launching at $7, perhaps even less per coin. That's US, and now Ethereum is over $3,000 per coin. So you can see there were, in fact, immense opportunities to make in the ICO space, but it was only a very small percentage. But when these ICO scams and rip-off merchants came into the space and started plugging their product through Google Ads and YouTube, Google stepped in and they cut off all the advertising for all crypto. It was a crypto ban across the entire space where there was absolutely no advertising for any crypto. But unfortunately, what the effect or the outcome of that was that all the legitimate players, all the big platforms that people should have had exposure to, they weren't able to reach the people. And then the scammers could come in. And if you ever operated on Google Ads or on YouTube, and if you're doing these ads, typically you can launch an ad and it will get up and running quite quickly. And it can sometimes take 2 to 3 days, perhaps even longer, until the system catches up that, hey, that person is advertising crypto before they shut it down. So they just kept replicating these ads. These scammers would come in and put out a scam coin or a scam ICO. They could run the campaign for 3 or 4 days, perhaps even longer, catch many people in these scams. All the time, the legitimate platforms were unable to get their message out to the people. And it was just a catastrophic outcome for those newbies coming into the space that were doing the right thing, trying to do their research, going to Google search or into the YouTube search, and the only results would be a scam.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I've had the chance to interview a number of founders of particular coins. I won't mention them by name, but I want to tell you the relatively standard narrative that I seem to get, right? Because I think it's important people understand that there are quite a few people looking for innovations and trying to actually innovate. So the story will go, we found a particularly innovative formula for a particular crypto offering. It's going to track better than gold, or it's going to provide returns better than long-term investments or whatever, right? So it normally has some attraction to it. And then they basically will explain it in painful amounts of detail as to why what they've got is different from what everybody else is, right? And, in some cases it'll be things like, it uses this particular platform or that particular security thing, whatever it is, right? And then they will basically say, well, there's, some founders that are actually involved in this, right? And then they will argue that they want to sort of spread the word and get more people to come and buy it, right? And then they will say, well, actually, what we're doing, of course, is we're staking, right? So what we're doing is basically we're lending off our coins for other people to invest in to be able to actually trade. And suddenly you start realizing that out of this fundamental idea, right, there's this ecosystem being built around it, right? Which basically you have a founders in the middle, and then you have some people that are sort of the believers and the evangelists, and then you've got the great unwashed beyond it, who they're trying to basically attract to come into it. And so often they will say, well, we need more people to come in because that's the only way that this is going to grow and the value is going to be created, et cetera, right? And I always ask them the question, so why is this different to any other Ponzi scheme, right? Because any other Ponzi scheme starts with a founding group, you then bring more people in, and effectively you start paying out to those people already in the scheme from people coming in to buy into the scheme, right? So why isn't this precisely the same? And I've seen this again and again and again. Now, I don't know whether that particular coin is a scam or not. But what I also know is that almost every time when I talk about this or make a show with somebody, I get half the people saying it's a scam and the other half people saying it's great. Right? Now, who's right? I can't tell. That's my problem with this whole situation. So how do I find my way around this world, Adam?
It's a great question, and this is where we get into the philosophy that we can speak about. I'll break it down. Let's go back a step. Crypto aside, any investment, if you even gold and property, if you want the price to go up, it's all about the demand in that. If there's no demand for property and if everyone sells their house straight away, the property market will tank. The same is for gold, the same is for the US dollar, the same is for absolutely every type of commodity, stock, bond, anything you like to mention. If everyone's going to dump it, the price is going to go down. So the argument that the only reason why crypto is going up is because people are putting money into it, therefore it's a scam, it's a really a straw man argument, or it's a slippery slope argument, in the sense that the same applies to any market, anywhere, for anything at any time. Going on to crypto, the reason why we are more exposed is, again, because it is the internet of money. If we compare the internet of knowledge and information, before the internet existed, knowledge was passed really through books and letters. So you either go to the library, which was open 9 to 5, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 or 7 days a week, depending where you live. Maybe you had some late night studies, and you could access the information in the written form in books. Then if you wanted to pass that information on, you could either hand deliver it or use a third party to send that information around. And that was a very slow process. Now, as we move on to the internet of money, the internet of money is where we can move value around the world 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, without a centralized body, arguably at the speed of light. And these things move so much faster. Then we go on to the third part of this, as I mentioned as we started speaking. When it came to investing in shares, so I started investing in shares when I was 18. And back then, it was a $500 buy-in. Now, a $500 buy-in, and even back then, I think it was a $70 brokerage fee. They're much cheaper now, the fees. I think that you can get them as low as $10. But still, a $10 fee for brokerage and a $500 buy-in, that pushes a lot of people out of the market. So now that we acknowledge that we have the internet of money and we have immense speed and complete inclusivity, where kids or young people or old people, anyone, any color, any age, anywhere, at any time, can put 10 cents or 10,000 or $10 million into the market, it creates a whole new way of looking at investing. Now, going back to the core of cryptocurrency, which is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is so powerful because it's trustless. And trustless is a term that I was never taught in school. I was never taught in any of my degrees or in my Masters of Business. I learned this term getting into the crypto space. Trustless systems are systems where we don't rely on an independent body or a third party to verify a ledger, verify transactions there, or verify that I have given this money to you or that money even exists. And this is why Bitcoin is so powerful, because there is no leader, there is no company. It is a completely trustless, open source, transparent, and immutable system that everyone can be part of. And that is why the truth is in the markets. And we can see that Bitcoin is at number one with a market cap, I think, just crossing over $1 trillion again, as we see the price pumping again and more institutional money coming in. That was the first coin. Some argue it's slow, cumbersome, and doesn't do as much as the other coins. The irony of that is, through the SWIFT network, if I wanted to send money around the world, it's typically 3 to 5 business days with a huge transaction fee going through many other hands before it gets there. And if we can get a transaction from Australia to England, as an example, in 3 days, it's a good run. Well, in crypto, I can do that in a matter of seconds, and Bitcoin, it can be up to 10 minutes. Now, I've been working with Bitcoin for a long time, and really the transactions are a matter of seconds. And some people are getting frustrated at 10 minutes. And it's funny how quickly we take this transaction speed for granted. Because if you think about mail, if we want to send a letter in the mail system, the snail mail, it could take several days to get there. Yet if I was going to send you a file, a video file as an example, and it takes 3 to 4 minutes to download, well, we get frustrated at that. And that's because we take these systems for granted very quickly. But bringing this back into the scam world, step one, we have to accept that in any market at all, if everyone dumps, the price will go down. If there is no demand, the price will go down. any market at all. We then have to understand that more people can get involved into the crypto space. It is more inclusive, therefore there is more money, and it moves much faster because it is the internet of money. Now, when you're talking about staking, we're slightly going on a bit of a tangent there, because staking, you have primarily two types of coins. You have a proof of work coin and a proof of stake coin. The proof of work coin is something like Bitcoin or Litecoin or currently Ethereum, where they're operating with these, they're called ASICs in the background, application-specific integrated circuit miners. They're basically computers that do a lot of calculations very quickly to verify transactions on the blockchain. Now, I'm a miner and I have many mining machines in my property out the back, and they're very noisy, very power hungry, and they verify transactions to allow the crypto, we'll use Bitcoin as example at the moment, to allow Bitcoin transactions to go through. Now, my reward for doing that is I'm rewarded, because it costs a lot of money to do so. So why would I do this? Well, every time a transaction goes through, or I verify a block more specifically, I get a small reward for doing that. And that reward is Bitcoin. But here's the difference, Martin. Instead of Bitcoin being rewarded to me from the person who's transferring from point A to point B, I'm rewarded Bitcoin from the code. The code rewards me that Bitcoin. So that's a completely different financial model to what we're used to. Proof of stake works a little bit differently. Proof of stake doesn't rely on proof of work, where you have these heavy power-hungry machines using lots of electricity to verify the transactions. When you put forward a certain amount of crypto to say, I am staking my investment into the blockchain, into this network to verify transactions, I am rewarded some money, that is cryptocurrency, for verifying those transactions. So two concepts, proof of work versus proof of stake. Which is better? Well, they serve different purposes. It's not so much one is better or worse. Certainly proof of stake uses less energy and is arguably faster, but proof of work most certainly has a value in the marketplace, primarily because it guarantees complete decentralization of a system, a trustless system where we don't have to rely on a bank. We don't have to rely on a third party verifying a ledger or transactions. We can rely purely on the beautiful mathematical code that is within the SHA-256 algorithm, or any algorithm that we're operating in proof of work. Where people are getting burnt, Martin, is that, we'll go with Australia at first. So Australia overrepresents in the crypto space. Australia is very interested in the crypto space for a couple of reasons. First of all, we are willing to take on more risk. Second of all, and this is just the world according to me, Australians are willing to take on more risk. Second of all, we are investors by trade or at heart. You can see that through our property markets and our involvement in the share markets. But third of all, we're quite rich. We have a fair bit of expendable cash compared to other countries in the world. Now, Aussies are out there trying to get into investments. They might have properties, they might have shares, they have their super, but then they hear about people like me or in other places in the crypto space that are making huge amounts of money in a very short period of time, and they want to get into it, and that's fine. So when they go into the crypto space and they're looking for opportunities, where they get burnt is they get caught up in a third-party provider that says, don't buy your own Bitcoin, don't buy your own crypto, you give your money to us and we'll buy it for you. And what's actually happening, Martin, is that those third parties, they're never buying crypto for you. They're just taking your money and stealing it from you. So again, that is why I actually made the CryptoLand, because those are products that I use, that I put out to the people and say, hey, these are not people that you give your money to and say, you buy the crypto for me. These are platforms where you put your money into the crypto and then you own the crypto. You hold the keys to your crypto. The real catchphrase that we constantly say in the crypto space is, not your keys, not your coin. What does that mean? That means that if you're not holding your coins in your own private wallet, in your own cold storage wallet or hot storage wallet, that is a physical device that you hold yourself, or a cloud type platform that is for you and not held by a third party, they're not really your coins. So you've really got to get into the space and think, right, I don't want to give my money away to a third party provider who's not even selling me crypto. They're pretending to send me crypto. or buy me crypto. They pretend to buy crypto on your behalf and then reinvest it, and they've got all these trading bots. That's what they claim that they're doing, but they're not actually doing that. They're just ripping you off. The newbies have to come into the space, remain curious, calculate their risk, and ensure that when they're buying their crypto, they keep it in their own wallets and hold it themselves. Just as if I gave you a $50 note, that $50 note is yours and you hold it. But if you gave that $50 note to a third-party provider, that third-party provider, even a bank, could lose that money one way or another. They could take that money away from you. So people should really be looking at crypto like cash. And that is, in fact, the power of crypto. It is your money in your pocket that you can do what you want with at any time, anywhere, globally, instantly, almost for free. Just as it doesn't cost me any money to give the supermarket $50 when I go buy my bread if it's cash. The same is with crypto, only that this time is that crypto, instead of it just being at my local supermarket, it is the world. And that is why it's the internet of money. So I realize that's a long-winded answer, Martin, but ultimately it comes down to things are moving quicker. There is more opportunity to put in this space, and people are getting burnt because in many ways they are denied the education that is very important in the crypto space.
No, I understand that, but you haven't really answered my sort of fundamental question, right? So I've spoken to a few founders, right, who've created their own version of a coin, right? And they all claim that they've got the best thing since sliced bread, right? But everybody else says, no, it's a scam, right? I don't understand how anybody can work out whether that coin over there or that coin over there is a scam or whether it actually is right. I mean, there's 10,000 and they keep growing, right? And then when you talk to people who are inside the sort of the ecosystem, who fundamentally believe that they've got the right solution, right? I mean, they're evangelists plus, right? And then they basically will not accept other than that they've got the best thing since sliced bread. That worries me, right? Because I don't think that any particular one is the only one, right? But if I'm somebody from outside and I get then caught in that ecosystem, I've got no compass to guide me as to whether this is actually something which is valuable or valueless, whether it's actually real or whether it's not. It's not regulated. So I'm trying to understand how people
let me have another go at it. It's a fair question. Yeah. Let me have another go. The truth is in the markets. Now, what do we mean by that? People will put money where they believe there is value. So if we go back to the traditional markets, what makes a share valuable? Well, exactly the same question that you just asked is when people are doing IPOs in the share market, so the older day markets of which you're very experienced with, the same rules apply. Someone says, we're releasing this new company, we're breaking up this company into shares, there's an IPO out there, an initial public offer, do you want to put your money into it? And the reality is most IPOs go nowhere. The majority of IPOs, just like ICOs, go nowhere. Now, just as the coin creator says, my coin is the best and everyone's going to use this, the same as in IPOs. They say, our soft drink is the best, or our pens are the best, or our cars are the best, or whatever product it is. They say their product is the best. They put it out to the public and they say, who wants to invest? Now, within that category, some are complete scams. They were never going to make the bottle of water. They were never going to make the car. They were never going to make the pen. And there's a lot of regulation around that, which makes sure that investors don't get ripped off so blatantly. However, people still do lose money regularly in IPOs or on the stock exchange. There is no denying that. When we go into the crypto space, the same principles apply. When someone comes forward and says, everyone's going to use my coin because it's fast and it's got a cool name and it's got a good supply. Well, you as the investor, you have to really ask yourself, is that true? Are people going to use that coin? Now, if you can answer that question, you will be the guru of investing and everyone will go to you and pay you lots of money to answer that every time a new coin comes out. So it goes back to the fundamentals of what is the product? What is this product that is offering a solution to what? What is the problem and what is the solution? So there are two types of coins, and this is where people are getting caught up. So we've got coins like Shiba Inu and Dogecoin, and some coins that are an absolute joke. But I'll raise Dogecoin. Dogecoin is a proof of work coin. It's slow. It has an unlimited supply, and the founders themselves said this coin is a joke. Now, in 2017, I didn't know any better, and I bought a lot of Dogecoin. Fast forward to 2021, and that coin made me stupid amounts of money. So much money, I couldn't believe that I had all of this money come flooding in. Now, is that because the coin was good? No. Was the coin a scam? No, it wasn't a scam. So why did it pump? It pumped because the truth was in the markets. And the truth in the markets was that many people thought Doge was a cool coin. So many people invested in this coin and it drove the price up, which goes up down to the fundamentals of investing. If there is a big demand for it and a lot of money going into it, the price will go up. So to answer your question, it's not a simple answer. You have to really ask in the first instance, why is your coin better than any others? And in many instances, in fact, 99 times out of 100, Martin, it's not better than the others. But here's the catch with something like Dogecoin. Even if it is not better than the others, if the market loves it, the price will go up. And this is why it is so exciting and dynamic in crypto, because no matter who the commentator is, I say, don't give them more than 20% trust. Don't even give me more than 20% trust. Whatever the commentator is. In fact, even on the channel, your channel, we spoke about a while ago with John Adams, the housing market was going to crash. Well, if everyone had invested or believed that information that the housing market was going to crash, everyone would have sold their house and it would have crashed. Well, of course, the housing market didn't crash. So we are all searching for the truth. And this is the philosophical side of what we're doing, Martin. What is a scam? And I've really gone into deep thought about what is a scam. Now, you have blatant scams where they say, we're going to sell you this product, which is going to make you live forever. And of course, that's not going to happen. So people put all their money into that. They take the product and they don't live forever, or it doesn't cure brain cancer, or it doesn't do what it says. That is a blatant scam. Now let's go a little bit deeper into it. And they say, this coin is going to be awesome because go Dogecoin. Well, many people have said the only reason why Dogecoin has gone up is because more people have bought it. And that's completely true. The reason why Dogecoin went up, a slow joke coin with an unlimited supply went up because so many people put money into it. But does that make it a scam? Well, no, that actually makes it the free market.
Right, and I think that's a really important point, right? So there is, if you like, a theoretical fundamental value of, an asset, whatever the asset is, right? And then there's a market value, right? And the market value of an asset is the combination of supply and demand. In other words, if you have a lot of people wanting to buy it, for whatever reason, in any asset class, prices like to go up. On the other hand, if you've got lots of people trying to sell it, prices go down. So that dynamic is, and clearly you see that in the crypto world, right? Because prices go up, they go down, and it goes back to, well, why people are buying. Elon Musk tweets and everyone's, I must go in and buy that one, right? So it goes up, right? Or vice versa, right? But there's an interesting question, right? Which is, but what is the fundamental value? So I can understand the fundamental value of a company, right? Because the company has cash flow, it has accounts, there's some regulation around it, et cetera, right? Fundamental value of a Bitcoin? I have no idea, right? Fundamental value of some of these other coins, I just have no idea. It could be zero, it could be something infinite. I mean, it seems to me, and this is something I think I want to explore a bit, is to what extent is this really investment, or is it really just speculation? Are we just taking basically a gamble? And is this just legalized gambling? Is that what we're really talking about here?
Great question, and let me challenge you on it. So I want to use Amazon as an example. So Amazon, for many years, was losing so much money. And if you look at the stock chart for Amazon shares, they were constantly going down in value. If you held on, you would have made more money than what you knew to do with. But now let's look at actually owning a share. When you own a share in a company, and we're talking about traditional stocks here, you don't have the power to, let's say you've got a stock, and I'm using someone else's example. Let's say we've got shares in McDonald's. And even if you have a lot of shares, let's say you own 10% of McDonald's shares, what control do you have over that company? You can't change the menu. You can't change the price of a Big Mac. All you can really do is have some voting when they're putting in a new board member, and you might get some dividends. Believe it or not, the shares of a company aren't really representative entirely of how much that company is operating or how much it's worth. And that is proved by what happened with Amazon. Now, and it's also proof with the reality that when you own shares, even if you own a lot of shares, you don't really have any control over what's happening with that company. When we look at what's happening with intrinsic value, I really ask, what is intrinsic value? And people think they know what intrinsic value is, but what is the value? And I had a great conversation with a very smart person today, and they said the problem with Bitcoin is that nothing's actually backing it. It has no backing behind it. There's no value behind it. There's no fundamental value behind it. And I said, well, what backing is there behind the Australian dollar or the US dollar or any dollar? And that backing is confidence. That's all it is. It is just words that say that the dollar is worth $1 because we say it's worth $1. But the reality is, the truth in the markets is showing that is not the case. It is not the case because we're running away with inflation. And even if you have the most power, centralized power in the land, which is a government, saying the dollar is worth this much, it's not true, because they keep printing it and it keeps running away with inflation. So it comes down to the truth is in the markets. How much is a Bitcoin worth? I'll tell you how much a Bitcoin's worth. A Bitcoin is worth $72,000. Why is it worth $72,000? Because the market says it's worth $72,000. Not you, not me, not the government, not a god, the market. And that is the power of markets. Markets is the truth. The truth is that the market says that coin is worth that much. It's been around for 12 years. This many people have bought into it. There is that much supply. We're willing to put that much money into it. The problem that we're facing with, of course, with fiat is that fiat is running away, and that is starting to collapse. So people are starting to shift their money into something else. We've also spoken about gold. What backs gold? I tell you what backs gold. People's belief that gold is worth something. Why is it worth something? Because it's scarce. Some people say gold is worth a lot because I can make jewelry out of it. That is true, but I can also make jewelry out of tin. Why isn't jewelry that's made out of tin worth more than jewelry that's made out of gold? Well, because gold is scarce. Ultimately, value comes down to scarcity and the desire in the market. So you might have something that's super scarce and there's no demand for it, so there'll be no price. But ultimately, when a product is scarce, just as Bitcoin is as an example, 21 million Bitcoins, if everyone wanted a Bitcoin in the world, there's not enough to go around. And people are waking up to that. Now let's look at fiat. Why is fiat valuable? What's the scarcity of fiat? Well, it's unlimited. How much money is in the world? We don't know. It's in fact unlimited. The only true unlimited product in the world is fiat. There is more air and sand, or sorry, my apologies, there is less air and sand than there is fiat. So we can see that with fiat, that in fact is the great awakening to many people who are making the distinction with crypto and Bitcoin in particular, is that fiat is something that we've been told has a value because we were told that it was scarce, but it's not scarce. And it's not linked to anything. It used to be linked, but of course we had the decoupling of fiat and gold in 1971. So we can now see that, in fact, fiat is unlimited and people are waking up to this. And you say, well, why don't we just go back to the gold standard? Well, of course, the problem with gold is that it's heavy and I can't just send it around the world. And now that we have the internet of knowledge, gold isn't really applicable to the internet of money. What is applicable to the internet of money is something that can be moved around the world at the speed of light, and that is scarce. Now, when we move on to these 10,000 other coins that you speak of, and it's a very fair point, the reality is, my friend, is that I could make a cryptocurrency in the next 7 days. I could determine the supply. I could say I call it Stokes coin. So I could make Stokes coin and launch it in the next 7 days. I could say that there's a supply of 1 million, 10 million, 10 billion, whatever I design it to be. Now, will the people buy it? If they want to. If people want to buy Stokes coin, they will buy it. But most likely, they won't buy it. Now, if I was a dishonest person and I pushed this coin out and said, no, Stokes coin is going to be the greatest coin in the world. Everyone's going to use it. It's better than Bitcoin because it's got a better logo. It's faster. It's cooler and it's newer, so everyone's going to buy Stokes coin. Well, this comes down to the investor's due diligence. If they don't understand crypto, or they don't understand that I've just released a coin with a supply of 20 billion. And in fact, I've seen a scam coin recently that's come out with a supply of 1 quadrillion. These are numbers that we didn't even talk about when we were at school. So you had the million, then your billion, then your trillion. And now we finally reached the quadrillion supply coins. Now, to launch one of these coins costs almost nothing. It's like launching a website. It costs virtually nothing to do. But are you going to invest in that coin? Well, if you're a sucker and you don't do your due diligence and you don't, at a minimum, look at the supply of that coin, then you'll probably throw your money at it. And that's what was really happening with Shiba Inu, which was kind of a take on Dogecoin. And many people invested in Shiba Inu because it had a great marketing behind it. Everyone was talking about it. It was on TikTok. It was on YouTube. Newbies were coming into the space and like, oh, that sounds like a good coin. And what they also got caught up with is that the coin was valued at 0.0000001 of a cent. So you could put in $10 and suddenly own millions of these coins. And what people were infatuated with is like, oh, I can put in $10 and be a Shiba Inu millionaire. So then they thought, oh, well, if I put in $10,000, then I can be a Shiba Inu billionaire. But of course, those coins had no value. Now we reverse it and we go over to Bitcoin. The number one thing I hear with Bitcoin is people say, I don't want to buy Bitcoin because it's $70,000 a coin. And they say, I can't afford $70,000. And I say, well, don't put in 70 cents. And they say, well, I'm not going to put in 70 cents because I want to own a whole Bitcoin. And it's like, why? Why do you want to own a whole Bitcoin? What you want to own is a portion of something that is scarce, in high demand, and is going up in value. And that, my friend, is Bitcoin.
Yeah, no, I absolutely get that. And look, I think there is a fundamental difference between, the Bitcoins of this world that have been around and, for the logical reasons, and the thousands and thousands of others that are actually popping out of the woodwork, right?
Yeah.
Where effectively you see social networks fundamentally pushing a particular concept, right? And it's interesting. Quite often what happens is the social network takes you out of the public domain into a domain which is effectively within their walled garden, and then you can get more information or whatever, right, in a secret world that nobody else could. It's I see that quite often, right? So
but that is if I could just interject,
Yeah.
because it's a good point. That is amplified to the extent that the mainstream is cutting off the advertising to the legitimate projects. So it's a double-fold situation where you have those bubbles or these insider groups, these social media groups that you were speaking of, where the advertising is virtually free, huge networks, a massive network effect. You can pump out a brand and there's really no checks and balances in place. Then you go over to the mainstream like Google, YouTube, and other channels that are then like, oh, crypto's a scam, so we're not really going to talk about it. And so all you're left with is a wild west of people coming in and saying, well, where do I look? And I'll also throw this in. So I get advertising deals almost, in fact, daily. In fact, sometimes I get 3 or 4 advertising deals a day where a company will come to me and say, can you plug this coin on your channel? And we will either give you lots of that coin. So SafeMoon was an example. SafeMoon is something that I say is a scam that's going around at the moment. I think SafeMoon Cash is the next one. So you had like Bitcoin, then Bitcoin Cash. Now you've got SafeMoon and SafeMoon Cash. But of course, to someone like me who's been in the space, and I'm not alone, many people have seen this, the red flags go up straight away. They come to me and say, can you advertise this coin? So straight away, I'm like, no. And the next thing they say, well, we're going to pay you all of this SafeMoon Cash coins. And it's like, well, they've got zero value. But the first thing I do is I look at the supply of it, and SafeMoon Cash is, I believe, it's in the quadrillions, as I understand it. I'm going off memory here. So the reality is that pretty much any coin that comes out, you should really put on the filter that it is a scam. And I'm the first to say that 99 coins out of 100 will collapse, probably even more. But here's the thing. This is the real challenge. I want you to think about going to a casino, and there are a lot of gamblers out there, and we have to face the reality that a lot of people treat this like gambling, and that's no secret, and it's something that we should address. If I go to a casino and I've got the roulette table, and I think there's 36 numbers on the roulette table with a 0 and a 00. So let's say, for argument's sake, there are 38 numbers on a roulette table. If I put $1 down on a roulette table, I've got 1 in 38 chances of winning. And if I win, I get 38 to 1. So I've got 38 options out there. I put $1 down, and if I win, I get 38 back. Now let's translate that into the casino, if you will, of crypto. I've got, instead of 38 numbers, I've got 10,000 numbers to choose from. But to keep this argument or this example consistent, let's say I'm at that roulette table and there's 38 cryptocurrencies to choose from. I put $1 on any one of those cryptocurrencies, but instead of the return being 38 to 1, the return can be 10,000 to 1 or 50,000 to 1 or 100,000 to 1. So think about this. Now I go into that roulette table. Which one's going to win? I don't know. So I put $1 on every single number. And it doesn't matter that the 37 lose, because the one that wins comes up at 10,000 to 1. I'm quite prepared to lose that $36 or $37 on all the other numbers that don't come up. But yet the one that does come up is 10,000 to 1. And that is the human emotion that these scammers are operating on. The human emotion is saying that our coin is going to be the next one that gives us 50,000 to 1, 100,000 to 1. And some coins can do that, but the majority of them won't. And of course, the challenge is now is that the roulette table isn't 38 numbers. The roulette table is 10,000 numbers. But unlike a casino, Martin, unlike a casino, I can actually do research on each one of those numbers. A casino, the wheel spins, it is completely random and there is no control over it. But in crypto, I can research the company. I can research the product. I can research the supply. I can do my due diligence. So I can take this pool of 10,000 different cryptocurrencies and I can narrow it down to potentially 100 cryptocurrencies. And of those 100 cryptocurrencies, one of them, of course, will be Bitcoin, which will give us, just in my opinion, 3, 4, 5, 6x over the next 20, 30 years. Ethereum probably give us 10x, Cardano possibly 20x. Again, this is just a world according to me, not financial advice. But lower down the list, there will be some coins that give me 10,000 to 1, 20,000 to 1. And that is so appealing to so many people. And as long as you do your due diligence and don't put all your eggs in one basket and calculate your risk and mitigate your risk, you can in fact make unforeseeable amounts of money in these markets, as I and many other people have and do.
Yeah, and that is, of course, the point, because there are people, who've actually done very well out of this so far, and there are a lot more wanting to get in on the act and wanting to follow suit and wanting to actually make money. And of course, in the current environment where there are so many uncertainties, the opportunity to create wealth that could be life transforming is very attractive. I guess my question, Adam, is to what extent, though, could ordinary people go through that research process and look at a particular coin and try and come up with a sense of whether it's real or whether it's not, or whether it's going to fly or whether it's not going to fly? Because I can tell you, from having spoken to a number of founders and having looked at a number of websites, right, quite a few of them make it really, really complicated, and I believe that they make it complicated to obfuscate the truth, which is that it's a scam, right? Or potentially could be a scam, right? It can get really complicated. It's very hard to really unpick precisely the way that they actually envisage it working, and precisely, what the momentum is potentially that you could see. So, without that years of experience that you've had, can people do that due diligence, or do they need to actually lean on somebody who's ahead of them in terms of understanding it?
That, my friend, is where my channel comes into the picture, and other channels like mine. Those who are out there that you explore these channels, you listen to what these commentators are saying, and then you actually don't, as I quite openly say, don't even put all your trust in me. Don't put all your trust in everyone. Do your due diligence and get a wide variety of opinions. So, for example, let's talk about Ethereum versus Cardano, two of the most powerful, arguably, smart contract coins that are out there at the moment. The David and Goliath battle. In fact, I've even said it's the Goliath and Goliath battle. Some people say Ethereum will not succeed. It's too slow. It's got too many bugs in it. Other people say there's no way Cardano won't succeed, or there's no way Cardano will succeed because they don't have the network effect and they're too late to come to market. Well, what's the truth? I don't know. I know that both coins are very powerful and both have big potential. And I'm constantly seeking the truth. Now, I invest in both Cardano and both Ethereum, and it goes back to calculating risk. These coins have been around for a long time. A lot of very smart people have spoken about it for many years. I've, in fact, spoken to the founder on my channel of Cardano, Charles Hoskinson, and I believe in the project. Now, if I'm choosing between 10,000 coins, the reality is, Martin, if there's 10,000 coins out there, probably 9,500 are going to fail. I don't even pretend to state that is not the case. It is absolutely, the majority of these coins are going to fail, just as the majority of businesses fail. The majority of businesses fail within the first 2 years of launching. That doesn't mean business is a scam. It doesn't mean shares are a scam. It means that business is hard, and it means that investing is hard, and it means that investing and business comes with a huge amount of risk. It's just that now in the crypto space, it is amplified and it is fast. It is amplified through both the potential growth that you can have and the speed in which it takes place. Businesses constantly collapse, cryptocurrencies constantly collapse, but the network effect of cryptocurrencies, just as we've seen the network effect of information platforms, is ginormous. I mean, even if you look at Yahoo made a lot of money. And who would have thought that Yahoo would have collapsed to Google? But it did. Now, does that make Yahoo a scam? No. Did people get rich off Yahoo? Absolutely. Will Google be around forever? Probably not, because there are a lot of competitors now coming up, in fact, in the decentralized space that don't control people's speech and enable people to have complete decentralized communication. So it's a really tough one, Martin, because there is no one answer. And investing inside or outside of crypto is tough. It's really tough, which is why we have crypto communities where we get everyone involved, we talk about it. And I've had controversial, shall we say, commentators on my channel. And some people have come forward and said, that's a scam. And I say, great. Why? And they say, well, it's a scam. And I say, well, why? And they say, well, because it's growing too quickly. And I go, well, Bitcoin grew quickly. Is that a scam? Amazon grew quickly comparative to other businesses in the past. Is that a scam? Google, its stocks grew massively quickly compared to, say, Ford Motor Company, as an example. Is that a scam? Things are moving much quicker. And it goes down to, what is a scam? Obviously, if I'm selling you something that says it will cure cancer and it doesn't, that is a lie, that is a crime, that is a scam and is punishable and should be. But if I say I'm launching Stokes coin, there's a supply of 100 million, do you want in? And people put money in and the market puts money in and the company grows or the coin grows, that's not a scam. That's the truth of the markets.
I think that's a really, really important point, right? Because essentially what you are underscoring, and it's worth, I think, just replaying that slightly, right? The market dynamics enabled by the technology means that you can actually engage in a market much more quickly and effectively than previously. And therefore, any market can be, created very quickly and can actually be very dynamic and can move. That doesn't necessarily make it a scam, right? Just because
Correct.
It happens quickly and people can, win or lose or whatever, right? But it can very often grade into deception or inequality, meaning that there are some in the know who are actually effectively the ones holding the baby, and then they're pushing it out to a bunch of other people who perhaps don't know, aren't as so expert, so they're exposed to an unequal set of transactions, unequal set of relationships, right? I see that quite often. And that's when it starts then getting difficult in my mind, because what you don't know is whether you're being told the complete story or a version of the story, because actually the network effect, which you mentioned just on, is really, really important for people to understand, right? If you only have one fax, it's useless. If you have a million faxes, then it's quite a useful piece of technology, right? And the same with all of these things, right? The more people who are involved in the market, right, as we said earlier on, that's the market dynamics, the more it potentially has the momentum that creates then the future value, supply, demand. So how do we get around this issue of the founders and the people who've got that sort of initial stake, and then who capitalize on that stake as other people come in, right? I mean, is that just the market operating?
Yeah, we've seen this happen in, again, olden day stocks where it's just a pump and dump. They say, they release an IPO, they say this product's going to be great. The inside group say, this is just going to be a pump and dump. We're going to make a really nice white paper. We're going to have a really good roadmap. We're going to have some really good marketing. We're going to get lots of people to buy into it. And then as soon as the price goes up, the people on the inner circle dump the stock or share or coin, and the price plummets, and everyone's left behind losing all of their money except for those people in the inner circle.
Yep.
In simple terms, Martin, there is no answer to it. We don't know. And right. if a centralized body is plugging a product and people want that product, and I use Dogecoin as example again, because Dogecoin, the founders of Dogecoin admitted, they openly said, this coin is a joke. This coin is something that has no cap supply at the moment. It's proof of work. It doesn't really do much. It's slow and it's useless, but we're putting it out there for fun. And the irony is, someone like Elon Musk picked that up and said, I love that. I love that, so I'm plugging it. So it went up. So on one hand, you can actually have a centralized body actually saying, we believe this is a joke and it's going to go nowhere, and yet the market loves it and it goes up. Now let's invert that. You have a centralized body that truly believe that they're making a good product. They truly believe that their product has value, and they truly believe that it has a future for anyone who invests in it, but it doesn't work and it collapses. So which one is the scam? If there is a known intent for the person to rip off the people, that is a scam, and those people should go to jail. But if we have a free market where someone launches a product, whether that be a cafe, a bank, a coin, a bottle of water company, and it collapses, that's just the free market. That's just the reality of business, that things go down. The danger with crypto is that if I were to launch a cafe, I need a lot of money, and that's a small business. I'd need at least $250,000 to get the shop, do the shop fit out, get the fancy coffee machine, get the tables, get the chairs, get the staff, do the training, do some ads, $250,000 dumped straight away. And my profits might be 2 to 5% per annum. Now let's think about crypto. I could build a cryptocurrency. I could outsource it to a team in India, and I could launch a cryptocurrency for the cost of a few $1,000s. For the cost of less than that coffee machine in the cafe. But if I make a cafe in a supermarket or a shopping center, what's my customer base? My customer base is, at best, everyone who goes to that shopping center, maybe some people who purposely go to that shopping center just to get my coffee. But at best, it's the people within that town, within that suburb, within that city. But when I launch a product on the global stage, where is my customer base? My customer base is planet Earth. Yep. And this is mind-boggling stuff. And not only that, if we go back to the cafe is only allowed to be open when the shopping center is open. But if I launch a coin or a website or a product on the internet, whether that be the internet of money or the internet of knowledge, the customer base is planet Earth, or everyone with an internet connection. And the opening hours is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But take it a step further. The buy-in can be as little as 1 cent. Even if I go to a cafe, I've got to spend $4 or $5 on a coffee. But if I want to buy 1 cent worth of Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin's worth $70,000, $72,000 at the time of recording, I can still buy 1 cent worth of Bitcoin. And this is a new concept to consider in the digital space. The digitization of everything means that contracts can be broken up into very small amounts. So we are, in fact, don't think of cryptocurrencies as just the money. I want you to think of other things such as NFTs, where, in my opinion, everything is going to be an NFT. When you graduate your university degree, you won't be given a piece of paper, you'll be given an NFT. Why? Because it's immutable, open source, and transparent, and you can't fake it. When you get a bus ticket in the future, it will be an NFT. When you use a passport, when you vote, when you do pretty much anything in the world, it will be an NFT, because it can't be forged, it can't be duplicated, and everyone agrees in this trustless system that that product is what it is. Now we get into the ownership of, say, property. Property is very restrictive because you need a lot of money to own property. But can you imagine I put a land title onto a blockchain where I can break up that land title, that ownership, into 100 million parts? That means that I now own 100 millionth of a house. And some people say, well, that's stupid. Why would you want to do that? Well, it's because it's an inclusive market. That means that you could go to your nephew or niece and say, here you go, here's $1 worth of Sydney Harbour Bridge. Now, over time, if Sydney Harbour Bridge goes up in value so too does that dollar's worth of Sydney Harbour Bridge. Now, it might be MLC Tower, it might be something in Melbourne, it could be anything. The point is, if you can digitize everything and break up the contracts, it's actually a wonderful form of democracy. But democracy comes with risks. And some of those risks are people doing the wrong thing by democracy, whether it's a digitized democracy or a social democracy. There are bad players out there. And that's why we go back to trustless systems. Trustless systems is what we're really aiming for at the core of cryptocurrency. Something that we don't have to have a royal commission into banks. Something where we don't have to be misled by someone who's lying to us. Something where we don't have a communist nation where we have a centralized body saying you will only earn $200 this week and a loaf of bread is $1 and you will live here. Democracy is now taking on a new form through the democratization of money and ownership of everything, everywhere, for everyone.
Yeah, and I think the analogy that you used there with property is very interesting. In New South Wales, they've just announced they're going to remove physical title documents. It's all going to be electronic.
There you go.
And I also am aware of an organisation that started to sell small interests in property. Right, so you can create a portfolio of properties, components, bits of a property, right, and build up a portfolio, right, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? So this isn't just a theoretical example; it's a real example, right?
So let me play with that example because it's a really good one. So now put on your investor hat. Someone comes to you and says, "Hey, Martin, you know how the government isn't going to take away physical land titles on pieces of paper? Well, my company has in fact made NFTs for land titles. My company is called Land Title Coin. I'm just making stuff up now. And Land Title Coin is going to be a system that is decentralized that enables everyone to put their land titles onto my blockchain and have a decentralized, open source, immutable land title database where we can digitize and decentralize the ownership of all the land titles through New South Wales. Are you interested?" And so, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good business concept. So they say, right, there's this supply, we've got this people on the project, I've got this reputation, that person has this reputation, we already have these negotiations with the government, are you interested? And it's like, well, now I'm even more interested. So you throw $100 at it. And again, if this was an IPO, I would normally have to throw in at $500 or $10,000 or whatever the IPO minimum is. But if it's crypto, you could put in $1. There may be no minimum. You could put in 10 cents. So then it goes back to how much risk are you willing to take? Now, for me, I can afford $100. I can put $100 into an ICO, an IPO, or a coin. I couldn't do it in an IPO because that's not the minimum buy-in. But I could put it in there, and if I lost that $100, I would still eat tomorrow night and the night after. But if you said you got to put in $1 million, I'd be like, well, hang on, that's a pretty high risk. Now it's all proportionate. If I'm on a 7 or 8 figure per annum income, $100 is nothing. But if I'm on a 5 or 6, probably a 5-figure income, a low 5-figure income per annum, $100 can be a lot. That can be my week's groceries. So that's where you calculate how much you're going to put in. The famous saying is only invest what you can afford to lose. Now, if I'm on $50,000 a year, I can really only afford to lose $50 to $100, depending on my circumstances. But if I'm on $10 million a year, I can comfortably afford to lose $100,000, again, depending on my circumstances. So the two parts to looking at this project is that A, is the project viable? B, who is running the project and who have they spoken to? And then C, how much can I afford to invest in it? Now, comparative, if I just came to you and said, like I did with my example before, and said, hey, Martin, I've got Stokes coin. My coin does nothing. It's just money like Bitcoin or like fiat. I've got a supply of 4 quadrillion. Do you want to buy in? I would suggest you would be an idiot if you said yes. But to counter my own argument then, if you had $5, it's like, yeah, look, I won't have coffee today. I'll put $5 into Stokes coin. And if it 10x's, my $5 has just gone to $50. But if it 1,000x's, my $5 has just gone to $5,000. So you can see that that's the mental game of this. That is the mental game that we are all playing, that 1,000x is not unlikely in the crypto space. In fact, 10,000x does happen. If you had, now Bitcoin's an extreme example, but Ethereum wasn't far behind and it's still got a long way to go. But had you put $100 into Bitcoin in 2009, you'd be on about $12 million now. Think about that. $100 for 12 million. Now, can you afford $100? Yeah. Now, what was the likelihood that it was going to succeed? No one knew. No one knew. But when you're looking at those type of returns, $100 turning into millions of dollars, that's where the human emotion gets involved. And now there are new projects coming in saying, we're going to be the next Bitcoin. But for people who have been in the space for a long time now, we say nothing can beat Bitcoin. There is no Bitcoin company. There is no Bitcoin board. There is no Bitcoin founder. Of course, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote the code, but he is anonymous. And although he has a supply himself of 1 million coins, that isn't concerning to me. Another thing that you might want to look out for is if I said, I'm going to release Stokes coin, there's a supply of 4 quadrillion, and I'm keeping 3 quadrillion for myself, that would be a massive red flag on top of everything I've just said. But going back to the example of where you said ownership titles will be all now digitized and possibly they should be put on a blockchain. They should be a form of NFT. And I said to you, well, I'm running the company that's now going to put all of these companies, all of these titles onto the blockchain. And you said to me, Adam, well, how many coins are there? I said, well, there's going to be a supply of 1 billion coins. You say, okay, how many do you own? And I say, I own 10 million. That's a reasonable risk. That's reasonable because if I dump 10 million of a supply of 1 billion, that doesn't really affect the market. But if I have 5 billion and I dump that with a total supply of 10 billion, that is a big risk and something that I wouldn't invest in. These are all the art of trading and the art of investing. That is difficult for everyone, everywhere, whether it be a cafe down at your supermarket, down at your shopping center, or a cryptocurrency that is launching to decentralize the ownership of land titles globally.
Absolutely. And, it shows you, again, how it grades from investing to speculating to gambling. I mean, it's a continuum, isn't it? Right?
Absolutely.
And it's also worth noting that any investment of any type, right, has risk attached to it, right? There's no such thing as a risk-free investment, right? It's just a relative risk, relative return, all of those things. And I think that's something sometimes, we find people either say, oh, no, I'm completely against crypto or I'm completely for crypto. Now, actually, any asset class that you invest in has risk attached to it. The risk might be calibrated differently.
There's also, if I may, just on that point, one risk that I've really started to calculate is in fact opportunity cost. So I own a lot of property and I've built up a property portfolio over many years. Now, I'm now in a position to buy several more houses. And if I buy these houses, what is the return? What's the growth that I'm going to get on those houses? Well, I mean, a few percent per annum. But if I put that money into Bitcoin and Bitcoin continues to grow as it is, and even if I diversify my holdings in crypto, I put some in Ethereum, some in Cardano, some in Bitcoin, some in Hex, some in other projects that I believe in, a few really high risk, high return coins, and I'm suddenly making 200% per annum. Well, for those who have said, I'm only going to invest in property, the reality is a lot of property investors are now waking up and saying, hang on a second, property isn't in fact giving me the return that the government promised me. I have rates, I have land taxes, I have inflation, I have difficult tenants, I have COVID where people can't pay for rent, I've got the interest rates that are going to affect me in the background. I have this huge counterparty risk for a relatively low return. So then you go and look over, you just peek over the fence into the crypto space, and we say, hey, come over here. You're going to quite comfortably get 200% per annum on these coins. There's definitely going to be risk, but history has shown that the demand is coming over here, and this is coming up and an up and coming market, and it's doing quite well. So now, of course, you have to calculate the risk of, if I put this money into property, what am I missing out through opportunity cost in these other markets? So now, as I evolve through my investment life, and I also realize how precious time is and how short we have, how very little time we have to invest, all of us, I'm now starting to realize, in fact, I realized this a while ago, this is in fact the opportunity of 4 or 5 generations. In fact, this is the opportunity of possibly more than any generation has ever had in the history of humanity. And I know that's a big call. I realize it's a big call. But the truth is in the markets. And the truth is we've never had an internet of money. We've never had a global market. We've never had an internet. This is an extension of the internet. We've never had so much uncertainty in the world. Mind you, we can see that these things are moving in cycles. We have seen fiat collapse before. And I would argue we are seeing fiat collapse again. We have seen the evolution of money from shells to gems to gold-backed fiat, to gold-backed money to now just fiat. And now this is the next evolution of money. And of course, we now have the evolution of the internet of money.
Yeah, and it is interesting because, of course, the accelerated value of cryptocurrencies happens at a time when effectively the central banks have been printing like there's no tomorrow, quantitative easing, the 6 trillion in the US, etc., etc. So we know the real value of money has been degraded significantly. We know there's a lot of liquidity around. We know that a lot of that liquidity is flowing into other asset classes, and as you mentioned earlier on, some of the large investment banks are actually buying big into the crypto environment as well. So it's all part of that sort of really weird situation where effectively the value of money is being, on one hand, degraded. On the other hand, people have the opportunity potentially to create significant returns, which may or may not be predictable or unpredictable, depending on how you unpack all of this. That's why it's this is a really interesting time to be alive and trying to work your way through all of this. And that's why this was a really important conversation to sort of get going today, because I think that the simple position of crypto is a complete scam or crypto is the future, there's a gradation there, some of which you need to unpack and understand some of the nuances that we started to touch on. Now, there's one question which was asked a bit earlier on, which I just want to put up. It's this one here. Push the right button. Tether. Now, Tether's an interesting story, right? Because Tether is sometimes held up as effectively an alternative, because it's a stable coin, I guess, an alternative view. What's your view on Tether? And is it kosher? Is it not kosher? What do you think?
Okay, great question. We've discussed Tether before, but it's something that we have to explore. So Tether is a stable coin. A stable coin is a coin that is linked to the value of the US dollar. So one Tether is $1. There is a very, very slight movement of a few points in there, but essentially every stable coin is backed by a US dollar. Now, why Tether is interesting is because Tether was the first stable coin to come into the market. There are now multiple stable coins that are similar to Tether, or pretty much identical to Tether, except for we in the crypto space don't have trust for Tether. We don't have trust for Tether because when they were first established, they said, we guarantee that for every one Tether we have, there is $1 in a bank somewhere. So it is always backed 1-to-1. Well, of course, when authorities started to probe into this, we discovered that that wasn't in fact the case. They had pieces of paper that said we're good for it. And I released many videos about Tether saying this is a scam and this is what's going to collapse the crypto market. And the reason why I was greatly concerned about it is because you had a centralized body doing exactly what the Federal Reserve is doing. They were printing money. Now, you might say the Federal Reserve only prints physical money. Not true. We already use digital fiat. The Federal Reserve prints digital money. Sometimes it comes out as a physical currency that you can touch, but the majority of it is just numbers on a screen. And Tether was doing the exact same thing. Tether was printing all of this money, and people were buying Tether. They were using real fiat to buy crypto Tether. And what was happening was that people were using this Tether as an on-ramp to get into the crypto space, to then move it around the markets, to then buy something like Bitcoin. And what was very alarming, pretty much around 2018, 2019, was that it appeared that Tether, the company or the centralized body, was printing fake money to buy the digital gold of Bitcoin, exactly the same way as the Federal Reserve prints fake fiat or fake money that is fiat to buy real gold. So that is the example of we have a centralized body, this in this instance being Tether, just like the Federal Reserve, printing fake money to buy real gold or digital gold. Fast forward to today, what we can actually see is that stable coins such as Tether, USDT, USDC as another one, they in fact have a very important part in the crypto ecosystem for investors to go into the crypto markets and ride the volatile waves of Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin, all the 10,000 coins are out there. And then when it gets a bit rough in the seas per se, they pull their money out of the cryptocurrencies that are either Bitcoin or the altcoins, and they put it back into the stable safe haven that is Tether or USDC or other stable coins. We can actually see what else is happening with Tether is that if I want to send you money from Australia to England, as an example, because it's the furthest distance I can think of. Actually, I'll make it more real. In the Middle East, there are a lot of third country nationals, third world nationals, apologies, who work very hard in the Middle East. They get all their money and they send it back home to their families in whichever country they might be in. It could be the Philippines, India, Nepal, all of these third world countries where typically the father goes out, earns all this money and sends it back. Now, the only way they could send it back was through the SWIFT network or Western Union. That is slow, it is expensive, and it is centralized and I say corrupt in the sense that they're just stealing all these people's money with unreasonable fees to send digital money through the internet over the world that would take too long. So now what these third world nationals are doing, they are saying, well, I want to send you crypto, but I don't want to send you Bitcoin, because if I take this month's pay and I buy Bitcoin, it might go down in value by the time I send it to you. So what they do is they take their money and they put it into Tether, which is tethered to the US dollar. So you don't have to worry about any slippage. You don't have to worry about any volatility. And now they can text money directly from their phone to their wife or husband or mum or dad in any part of the world instantly for almost free. So in fact, Tether and stablecoins actually play a crucial role in the ecosystem that is cryptocurrency by enabling people to push money around the world very quickly, and also enabling them to exit out of and enter back into the volatility of the crypto markets. What I don't know, Martin, is if the house of cards that is Tether will crash the market. No one really knows. But the reality is, after many years, it's just proven its value and other stable coins are coming in. What I would say to investors out there is you don't need to invest in these coins per se, because they're not designed to go up or down in value. They're designed to simply be a stable currency that you can move around. But going into deep thought experiment about this, if I buy $1,000 worth of Tether, and Tether is tethered to or pegged to the US dollar, and the US dollar deals with 8% of inflation or 10% of inflation or any amount of inflation, then so too has that cryptocurrency, because it is pegged to the US dollar. So as the US dollar collapses, if you're holding that value in Tether, it too is going down in value. So this goes down to the deep thought experiment about what is value. And this is in fact why I see gold in the future, that this is the world according to me. I in fact believe that we'll be measuring the value of Bitcoin in ounces of gold, not the price of an ounce of gold, but actual ounces of gold. For example, 1 Bitcoin equals 50 ounces of gold, as an example. And that is one way of ensuring that we have some type of stability of value, because the reason why Bitcoin is going up is not, in my opinion, is not just because people are buying more Bitcoin, but it's also because the unit of account to which we are comparing the value of Bitcoin is going down. So even if Bitcoin maintained a consistent purchasing power, the nominal amount would go up as the unit of account that we measure it to starts to go down in value. So that's why I think we're going to have this double effect. The US dollar is going to go down in value, which means that the comparative price of Bitcoin is going to go up in value. So stable coins are something that you need to be careful of. And I would not be investing in any third-party companies that are launching other stable coins, as some people are trying to do now. We have enough stable coins. They are doing their job. And anyone who's launching a stable coin may be doing so with questionable motives.
Yeah, well, I've come across a few of those and interviewed a few. And one of the questions I quite often ask is, why are you creating yet another stable coin? And quite often the answer is either because we think we've got a better algorithm or opportunistic, right? So I'm with you. I'm a bit skeptical of proliferation of
and that, my friend, that is your wisdom. And I don't mean that to say that as brown nosing per se, but you're dead right. Why do we need another stable coin? And why is your stable coin better than the other one? I mean, stable coins are moving at the speed of light anyway. Quite literally, if I send a transaction right now through a stable coin, I don't have to wait for hours for a transaction to go through as I do with the Swift network, which could be 3 days, or Western Union. So don't just fall for anyone who's plugging a stable coin. You really have to ask, why do you even need them at all?
And that it's my philosophical training. I always ask the why question,
Yep.
right?
Ask
Now,
why.
here's one from Jason, which is also quite interesting. And I just want to put it up again, and thanks, Jason, for the super chat. So if you invest in crypto, is the gamble not taxed versus trading, whereby you are taxed and it's complicated? What's the differentiation between gambling and making money out of crypto tax treatment-wise? That's a very interesting question, right? It's quite complicated, so we probably won't have time to pull it apart. But what's your perspective in terms of one versus the other?
The reality is crypto is taxed. Crypto, and check out the videos I've done with my accountant on my channel, as well as third-party software providers that help you calculate all the taxes on your cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies have been legitimized by the fact that the Australian Taxation Office, as well as the IRS and other government bodies, do tax crypto. The easiest way to answer this is that crypto, for all intents and purposes, is treated like a share. If you buy a share and you sell that share at a profit, you are going to pay a tax on that capital gain. If you hold that share for more than 12 months, you pay tax on 50% of that profit. If you hold it for less than 12 months, you pay tax on 100% of that profit. So the difference between gambling and I'm not a gambler. I think everything we do in life is a gambler, but I don't go to casinos and gamble. I don't use poker machines. I just think you're wasting your money. And the reality is the returns on the crypto market are way better. And I can calculate the risk far easier and not just leave it up to random events that are happening on a roulette table or a poker machine. As I understand it, though, if I win money gambling, I believe I don't have to pay tax on it. But if I do win money or gain money through cryptocurrencies, most certainly I must pay tax on those gains.
Yeah, exactly. And the capital gains, of course, is the same treatment as for other investment classes. Right?
One selling point for El Salvador, as I understand it, is that they were saying that if you want citizenship, I'm not sure if they actually put this theory into practice, but they're saying that because, as you may know, El Salvador was adopting Bitcoin as a legal tender within their country. And they were saying that if you wanted to go to El Salvador and become a citizen, and again, I don't know if they actually rolled out this bill, but you give the country 3 Bitcoin. So a cost for a passport was 3 Bitcoin. And then any Bitcoin you bought into that country was not subjected to capital gains. Now, that's something to really consider. Imagine you were sitting on $100 million worth of Bitcoin, which is not unreasonable. If you sold that $100 million worth of Bitcoin in Australia, you would have to pay capital gains on at least half of it. But if you migrated to El Salvador under this law, you would have to pay no capital gains on it. Now, I'm not a tax advisor, and there may be some tax exit fees for getting out of the country, but it was certainly something very interesting in the broad picture that countries were adopting crypto or Bitcoin as legal tender and not making their people or foreign nationals pay tax on the gains on that crypto.
And just to try and pick up the earlier point, the way that the ATO thinks about it is they think of crypto investments as essentially you buy and there's a set point. If you sell at another point, you've made a capital appreciation that's translated back to Aussie dollars, and you then pay tax on the Aussie dollar variation, effectively, the gain that you've made. And that's the way it works.
Absolutely. And to anyone who believes that crypto is a scam, the industry, well, I would be asking, if crypto is a scam, why does the Australian Taxation Office recognize it as an absolutely legitimate form of income and speculation or investment that they will tax? The ATO does not tax scams. The ATO will report scams to the Australian Federal Police or ASIC. So that is something to really consider when you're thinking, oh, crypto is a scam.
Yeah, exactly right. And the scam watch that I mentioned earlier on, right, were actually schemes where people were being cajoled to try and buy into crypto schemes that weren't real, right, which is what you were talking about earlier on, right, and there are still lots of those around. It wasn't about the pricing or buying at the wrong point, that's something different. That's sort of standard trading. So just to be clear on that. Now we're coming up to 9:26. It's amazing how the time's whizzed by, but I just wanted to touch on two quick things. The first is, you mentioned earlier on something really important, which is, where is value pinned to, right? That is, for me, one of the most critical questions for people to get their head around, right? And when I talk to people, and I've spoken to a number of experts around the world who have very different views of the future, but their different views come back to whether they pin the value ultimately on the US dollar as the anchor point, or whether they pin the future value on gold. Peter Schiff, for example, would go there, or wherever, right? That actually becomes the fundamental philosophical question. What is the point of anchorage in terms of where all the other moves are going, right? And you said something very interesting, which was that you think it might be actually more associated with gold rather than some other alternatives, which is, I think, quite fascinating, and not the US dollar.
It could, in fact, go the other way around, where we value gold comparative to Bitcoin. Let me explain. It's all about scarcity. What is the supply of gold? So if we took all the gold in the world and melted it down, it would fill 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. But is that all the gold in the world? No. That's only the gold that we've pulled out of the ground and that we've smelted. But how many Bitcoin are there? Well, I can tell you exactly. There are 21 million Bitcoin, 18.5 million in circulation. We've lost about 4 million, with less than 3 million to mine over the next 100 so years. Why do I pull out those numbers? It's because if we say that the US dollar is the underpinning value of everything in the world, well, we know that's going to collapse in the sense that it's unlimited. They just keep printing more of it. We've seen 35% of all of the US dollars printed in existence just in the last 12 months alone. And there's nothing saying that they're not going to print another 30% in the next 6 months. So it can't be the US dollar. It can't be any dollar. It can't be any fiat, because that is truly unlimited. So then we go to gold and we say, well, there's 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of gold. So that certainly gives us a more scarce and a more finite and a more certain amount of gold in the world. But again, we haven't uncovered all the gold in the world. And we don't know if we maybe, I don't know, no one knows. Maybe one day we find 2 more Olympic-sized swimming pools full of gold, and suddenly we've doubled the gold supply. So then we go on to, what's the alternative? Well, that's where Bitcoin comes into it. 21 million, 18.5 million mined, 4 million lost. That's it. No question about it. We all agree on that. There is no centralized body that controls it. We can't print any more of it, and it can only go down in supply if we start losing it. And when I say lose it, if you're holding this digital gold on a password or on a cold storage device and you lose that device or the cold storage seed phrase or password, that money is gone forever and ever. But the positive side to that is that we can't print more of it. With great power comes great responsibility. So if you've got Bitcoin, make sure you hold it, not your keys, not your coin.
Absolutely. All right, now we're coming up to the end of the show, but just before we finish, I just wanted to reflect very briefly on Alex Saunders, right? You know Alex, I know Alex. I made some shows with him specifically on economics. And of course, the recent press coverage would suggest that things have gone a bit pear-shaped there. Now, I don't want to get into specifics with regards to him, but I just want to use this as an example, right? That even people who may appear trustworthy and straightforward and actually offering good advice, sometimes it's more complicated. And I want to underscore that you need to be quite cautious about these things and don't necessarily put your trust too much into somebody, even if they look authoritative and sound authoritative. You need to do your own research, right? What's your perspective on this?
Well, of course, there's been no statement from Alex, so we most certainly, in the name of democracy and fairness, we presume complete innocence until proven guilty. However, what's actually happened in the crypto space is that a lot of people put a lot of trust in Alex, and he's a very smart guy that's given us all great insight into the crypto space. And I think many people were hurt with the accusations that have not yet been proven against Alex, that this is someone that we believed in, someone that we trusted, and someone that we thought that we could, in fact, put all our trust into. And it actually goes back to, again, the video that I released recently about trust. Generally, I say this: never put more than 20% of anything that you have in more than one place. Now, that might be money, but it might also be trust into someone. So even me, I I do my best to search for the truth and deliver the truth. And I myself on my channel, I'm exploring the truth and trying to find both sides to everything that is out there. If it's a scam, I want to know why. If it's not a scam, I also want to know why. But I'm going to make mistakes in my crypto journey. I hope to never make a mistake, but I know that I'll never do it intentionally. However, there are some people out there that may be caught up in the state of gambling. I've actually looked into the psychological realities of gambling, and what I've learned, Martin, is in fact, if you're a gambler, it's a very serious addiction. And I'm not suggesting anyone out there is or is not a gambler, but if you are a gambler and you get caught into the crypto space gambling, you can get yourself into a world of hurt. That is, if you're a speculator, an investor, an advisor, a commentator, if you're a gambler, you're going to get into a world of hurt. So it goes back to, when it comes to you storing your crypto, never put more than 20% in any one place. When it comes to seeking knowledge from people out there, try not to put too much more or any more than 20% trust in that person. So by doing that, you actually diversify your knowledge base. So I might put 20% trust in you. I might put 20% trust in someone else, my teachers, my professors, my comrades, all the people out there. And I might put 10% trust in there. But overall, if I'm not going to put all of my trust into any centralized body or any person, I can in fact get more facts, more knowledge, and make sounder decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. You know, one of the things we try to do on DFA is to put different voices up, different opinions, different ideas, right? Because that's what I think is the most helpful thing that I can do, right? And rather than sort of preaching a particular doctrinal view on anything, right, I try to actually put different views up so people can make their own opinions, right? Make their own decisions and think about things, right? The trouble is, quite often, what I see is that people want to jump and reach for that sort of instant gratification, the instant answer, right? And I think that in the crypto world, you know, my message is just be careful, right? Don't necessarily swallow everything whole that somebody says. Don't necessarily say just because it's crypto that it's going to be perfect every time, right? Because actually crypto has been created by human beings, and human beings aren't perfect. You know, they're far from it. So the point is, a bit of caution's good, but just to be clear, my own position is also that, as I said right at the start, the concept of the blockchain, the concept of democratization of finance, all of those things, I'm actually a great believer in that, because I don't think that central banks and central bankers and big banks and the fiat system is actually working to the benefit of most of us. So I'm hoping and believing that some of these new things can take us to a different future, but we have to be careful about the journey.
That, my friend, is the key point to all of this. It's all about trust. Do you really trust the bank, especially after the Royal Commission? Do we put our complete trust into governments? Do we put our complete trust into corporations? And when you actually start to explore that, you realize, in fact, no, I don't put my complete trust into all of these things. Bring in a trustless organization such as Bitcoin, and it's something that takes a lot of time to wrap our head around, because in the history of humanity, we have never had a trustless organization. We have never had a trustless money. And once you really grasp that something, some have even said it's almost a godsend, this decentralized type of doing money, way of doing money that is completely trustless, you actually start to realize, oh my word, this is in fact the future, not just of money, but the future of business.
Absolutely, and that is the point, of course, because the whole concept of what we're talking about here is a radical recrafting of the economy top to bottom, right? And the finance proportion is an enabling capability of something much bigger. And that's where I get really excited, because I can see some of the potential over the horizon. It's not quite there yet, but you can see. And look, we may well end up where central banks lose a lot of their power because of it, and the banking system as it currently exists effectively, dissolves into something rather different. And the concept of empowering individuals and their finances off the back of that, to me, is actually a really positive thought. And this isn't necessarily the same argument as next time the new cryptocurrency is going to jump into it. No, I'm not saying. I'm saying there's a much bigger story here, right? Beyond, over the horizon as it was, beyond the initial range of coins that are out there and the initial conversations we've had. So don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Mark my words, we will be voting through the power of the blockchain. Remember, Bitcoin is merely an application on the blockchain. It is merely the first application. Just as email was the application that we knew on the internet, Bitcoin is the first application we know on the blockchain. The fundamentals of democracy are going to change for the better. And it is why I have devoted pretty much the majority of my time to sharing the knowledge and power around Bitcoin and blockchain, because it is completely immutable, decentralized, trustless, open source, and most importantly, Martin, all inclusive.
Yeah, and democracy, democracy in action, actually, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate your time today, Adam. It's been a really interesting conversation, very interesting and very lively chats, some of which I put up, some of which I didn't put up for obvious reasons. But, I thank you very much for coming on and confronting, I think, some of those really important demons. And if people want to find out more about you, where do they go?
Sure, come over to Adam Stokes through YouTube. Also, check out my book, 28 Pro Trader Tips, The Art of Trading. If you want to know the trusted sites that I use in the crypto space, it is the crypto.land. And finally, I put this last message out there. Don't be angry at Bitcoin. Don't be angry at crypto. Don't be scared of it. Be curious, remain open. And I'd in fact put it to your viewers, follow your lead, Martin. Follow the lead that you've taken, where you've constantly remained curious, open, and also constantly opening questions to how this is going to work. And that is, in fact, a reflection on not only the success that you've had through YouTube and through your life, but also the success that many of your viewers have had coming over to my channel. And I welcome all of your subscribers that have come over to my channel, because it's great to have you with me. And some of them have been immensely angry when they've come over to my channel. They've come over to, I wouldn't say abuse me, but certainly have a go at me. And one of your most toughest subscribers eventually came around and has in fact thanked me for changing their life for the better forever. So you're all welcome here. This is an all-inclusive environment. Be curious, ask the questions. I'm happy to help.
Adam, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Thanks for sharing your thoughts once again. And I'm sure we'll be doing it down the track. So much more to talk about, but I appreciate your time tonight. Have a good evening. I'm going to take you offline and just close the show now.
Thank you, Martin.
See ya. So there you go, folks. Very interesting conversation. A lot of challenging thoughts there. And thanks to Adam. Just in terms of next week, the show will be with Damien Klassen, and we're going to cover the update on the market. Are they going to go up? Is it going to go down? Where's it heading from this point? So that will also be, I think, a really interesting conversation. So mark your diaries and come back next week. And I want to say thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for all the super chats. Really appreciate them all. Thank you for all the questions. Sorry we didn't get to all of them, but hopefully we took a representative sample of questions. Look forward to seeing you again, and check back next time for DFA Live next Tuesday. This is Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, signing off. See you later.